Judy Blume is who our author study is going to be about. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about her early life. We're going to talk about how she became an author and some of her amazing works. And then we're going to wrap up with what she's done today to make her such an outstanding character in Authorland.
We're going to now talk about before she was an author, her early life. She was born February 12, 1938. She grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Her father was a dentist and her mother was a homemaker. She does have one brother. His name is David, and he's 5 years older.
So for Judy, she dreamed a lot. She truly did dream about actually being a cowgirl and running a farm or running a ranch. She dreamed about actually being a ballerina. I like in the slide before we showed that picture of her that her mom or father took of her. And she even dreamed about being a detective and solving crimes. And she dreamed about being an actress. And then she dreamed about being a spy. And I think all of these things in her life helped her try to put her perspective and be able to write really creatively through her novels. And so by these thought processes, she was able to be a successful writer. So she never occurred that being a writer was something that she could do in her future.
She was married to John M. Blume in 1959. She graduated from NYU in 1961 with a degree in teaching. In the picture, you'll see her two kids, Randy and Larry. And Larry was actually the inspiration for Fudge.
So a change in her direction, what was the path that led her to writing, along with being a dreaming child? She tried songwriting and nothing was original. She felt that she actually did felt name banners for her children when they were in their sports, and then she became allergic to the glue, so she had to walk away from that. So she began writing picture books for her children, and her children, when she watched them play, she was able to see these characters come alive in her head from everything that she had done as her childhood. She would see this freedom in her children.
So we'll talk about now Judy's books. She first published a book in 1969. The one in the middle is The Green Kangaroo.
Soon after, Judy started creating her picture and storybooks, and these are her early ones. One of her most famous books that we are actually going to be using in our activity when we meet in class is Freckle Juice. We're going to be having actually based around that book because it's such a big impact for especially young students in like first and second grade.
So 5th through 9th grade school books, I'm sure a lot of us have read this. I remember specifically reading Blubber. But so she began writing a lot of books and for different age levels, as you could see.
The Pain and the Great One series was something that came out before the Fudge and during, and was the idea process that she had created along with getting into her Fudge books, which are a very serious series that took a long time for her to create. And I think this was kind of where it rooted from what I was reading about her. Judy wrote this series, and I believe this helped a lot of kids get through a lot of things in their own life, as a child and as a student. And how do you think of that as a child? And I think she was able to tap into her own brain process and put that forth into these books. And she used what she saw through her kids again to create these great series for children to experience.
Then the Fudge books, which are like Fudge Mania, which we found out were inspired by her son and then her grandson. So all of the Fudge Mania series were the next ones that she created.
What's another important part about Fudge, there was an interview that we couldn't link in here for you, but we're going to tell you a little bit about it. She had an interview where they asked her where Fudge came from, and Fudge was based off her son, and he did weird things like sit under the table and want to eat his dinner. And she had a friend tell her, Judy, your son's going to grow up to be weird. And she said, well, that's okay, it's what he likes to do. And she has reported today, well, recently in modern time, that he's all grown up, and he talks about that in his life, and that it's really funny to see how his mom wrote about him and his activities as a child. And he's not weird, he's very successful, and it gives him great pride that his mom wrote about his crazy childhood into these books. When she was writing the last book, Fudgemania, which is the second to last, and Double Fudge, those last two books were inspired by her grandson Maverick, and she felt that she had to dedicate one last book to homage in her family, which was Maverick, her grandson. This is some of the outcome of Fudgemania, how big of an impact it made into the world. And so you have like the Super Fudge series, and it became a big deal, and a movie, and Sheila the Great, and how it turns a spin-off within that book, because Sheila was part of the Fudge series. She was a character in her books.
And she moved on to more young adult. So as you can see, Judy Blume's not limited to only one age group or one kind of specifically what kind of genre of book. So these are more for young adults and older readers.
Judy's also experienced writing adult books, and so far it has done her a good success. I've actually read all three of these books myself. They're great reads, especially if you can imagine what Judy's life was like. I think she put a lot of herself into these books as well, and the experiences that she's had as a married woman, a mom, and you can see a wife, smart woman. I believe a lot of that goes into these adult books that she's created.
So we're going to be talking about how Judy writes, where she gets her ideas from, what's the hardest part of writing, and her favorite places to write.
Something really important to consider in her advocacy for freedom of literature and intellectual freedom. Since the 1980s, books of all genres have been challenged and removed from schools. Judy is an advocate for intellectual freedom. She's quoted at saying, "Let children read whatever they want, and then talk about it with them. If parents and kids can talk together, we won't have as much censorship because we won't have as much fear."
So she's overall won over 90 awards. Carl Sandburg Freedom to Read Award, the Chicago Public from the Chicago Public Library, Margaret Alexander Edwards Award in 1996, the Library of Congress Living Legend, and the NCTE Slate National Intellectual Freedom Award in 2013.
So this is going to wrap up our slide. She believes that librarians saves lives by handing the right book at the right time to a kid in need. This comes back to real quick when she was real little. She was in a library, and her mother would always take her there, and she would get lost in the books, and she would try to read as many as she could in the time that she was at the library, and her mother would always find her within the aisles, just on the ground reading books. And one time she didn't know what to read, and she didn't know where to start, and a librarian came over and handed her a book. I can't tell you which one because I don't remember, but a very special book that launched her forward into her passion with books, and that's where it all started.